What do we mean by Christian founding, with an emphasis on Christian? I think we can mean a couple of different things. One is we can mean that the founders identified as Christians, and if that's what we mean, then indisputably we had a Christian founding. 98% of Americans of European descent are Protestant. The other 2% are Roman Catholic, and you have maybe 2,000 Jews in 4 or 5 American cities. And so if we're just talking about identification, indisputably a Christian founding, but that's not particularly interesting, right? Because they might have been Christians influenced by non-Christian ideas, Christians self-consciously attempting to create a secular government. So I would move on to something a little more interesting. We might ask, were they Orthodox Christians? And this is a far more interesting question. So many scholars have said America's founders were Deist. At least most of them were Deist. That is, not really Christians as we traditionally think of the term. And yet I think we can prove indisputably that most of them were not Deist. Deist you can count maybe on one hand. It's harder to prove that they were all Orthodox Christians simply because we don't have the records to demonstrate this. A third possibility is that they acted like Christians. They did things we would expect Christians to do, such as join a church, or perhaps live morally upright lives. So in many instances, we can show that they were church members and that sort of thing. In many instances, we don't have good indications that they were impious people. On the other hand, we know that some of them sinned. Alexander Hamilton had an extramarital affair, of course. But that doesn't make him not a Christian, right? All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Christians continue to struggle with the old man within. So I just don't think that's a very profitable way to think about a Christian founding. By far and away, the most profitable way, in my estimation, is to ask, were America's founders influenced by Christian ideas or ideas developed within the Christian tradition of political reflection? And here I'm joining millions of scholars, not literally millions, but thousands of scholars who want to argue America's founders were influenced by Lockean liberalism or the classical Republican tradition or the Scottish school of moral sense or the common law tradition. So I'm just putting Christianity on the table. And I think an excellent case can be made that America's founders were influenced by Christian ideas or by ideas developed in the Christian tradition of political reflection. And we can talk about some specifics if you want later. Let me jump to the other side of the phrase, Christian founding. What do we mean by founding? I think there's three most obvious possibilities. One would be the earliest colonial settlements. So we might think of the United States of America as having been born in the 17th century, these early colonial settlements, and then they matured and grew up over time. So if we go back and look at Puritan New England, Pennsylvania, William Penn's Pennsylvania, even Virginia, I think you have excellent reason to believe that these early settlers were profoundly influenced by Christianity. If we jump to the War for American Independence, and maybe even specifically the Declaration of Independence, we could have a very nice discussion, I think, the extent to which the revolution is justifiable. Can Christians revolt against a civil state? Romans 13 might seem to suggest otherwise, but by this point of time, Protestants had developed a very robust understanding of when it is permissible to resist tyrants. And this was just almost universal within Protestantism. And remember, 98% of Americans are Protestants, so this is a part of their tradition. So I think you can make an excellent case that American patriots were definitely influenced by Christian ideas. We might then jump finally to the U.S. Constitution, because what did the Revolution accomplish? Well, it freed the colonies from Great Britain. It created 13 independent states, but there really wasn't a nation yet, not a single nation. You have the Articles of Confederation, but of course that didn't work out so well. So one might say America was founded with the U.S. Constitution. And this raises some interesting questions. The deity is largely absent from the U.S. Constitution. There's not great, wonderful biblical or theological language in the Constitution. And yet I believe if we're defining Christian founding as the founders being influenced by Christian ideas, I believe you can make an excellent case that the men who drafted and ratified the U.S. Constitution were profoundly influenced by their Christian faith. And thank goodness they were, because it led them to adopt a variety of things like limited government, enumerated powers, separation of powers, checks and balances, because of their Christian convictions. In this case, the idea that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God.